In the corner of a first-class smoking carriage, Mr. Justice Wargrave, lately retired from the bench, puffed at a cigar and ran an interested eye through the political news in the Times. He laid the paper down and glanced out of the window. They were running now through Somerset. He glanced at his watch. Another 2 hours to go. He went over in his mind all that had appeared in the papers about Soldier Island. There had been its original purchase by an American millionaire who was crazy about yachting, and an account of a luxurious modern house he had built on the little island off the Devon coast. The unfortunate fact that the new third wife of the American millionaire was a bad sailor had led to the subsequent putting up of the house and island for sale. Various glowing advertisements of it had appeared in the papers. Then came the first bald statement that it had been bought by a Mr. Owen. After that, the rumours of the gossip writers had started. Soldier Island had really been bought by Miss Gabrielle Turl, the Hollywood film star. She wanted to spend some months there free from all publicity. Busy Bee had hinted delicately that it was to be an abode for royalty. Mr. Merryweather had had it whispered to him that it had been bought for a honeymoon. Young Lord So-and-so had surrendered to Cupid at last. Jones knew for a fact that it had been purchased by the Admiralty, with a view to carrying out some very hush-hush experiments. Definitely Soldier Island was news. From his pocket, Mr. Justice Wargrave drew out a letter. The handwriting was practically illegible, but words here and there stood out with unexpected clarity.
Dearest Lawrence, such years since I heard anything of you. You must come to Soldier Island. The most enchanting place. So much to talk over. Old days, communion with nature, bask in the sunshine. 12:40 from Paddington. Meet you at Oakbridge.
And his correspondent signed herself with a flourish, his ever Constance Culmington. Mr. Justice Wargrave cast back in his mind to remember when exactly he had last seen Lady Constance Culmington. It must be 8 years ago. She had been going to Italy to bask in the sun, to be at one with nature and the contadini. Later, he had heard, she had proceeded to Syria, where she proposed to bask in sun yet longer, and live at one with nature and the Bedouin. Constance Culmington, he reflected to himself, was exactly the sort of woman who would buy an island and surround herself with mystery. Nodding his head in gentle approval of his logic, Mr. Justice Wargrave allowed his head to nod. He slept. Vera Claythorne, in a third-class carriage with 5 other travellers in it, leaned her head back and shut her eyes. How hot it was travelling by train today. It would be nice to get to the sea. Really a great piece of luck getting this job. When you wanted a holiday post, it nearly always meant looking after a swarm of children. Secretarial holiday posts were much more difficult to get. Even the agency hadn't held out much hope. And then the letter had come. I have received your name from the Skilled Woman's Agency together with their recommendation. I understand they know you personally. I shall be glad to pay you the salary you ask, and shall expect you to take up your duties on August the 8th. The train is for 12:40 from Paddington, and you will be met at Oakridge Station. I enclose £5 for expenses. Yours truly, Una Nancy Owen. And at the top was the stamped addressed Soldier Island, Sticklehaven, Devon. Soldier Island. Why, there'd been nothing else in the papers lately. All sorts of hints and interesting rumours. Well, probably that was mostly untrue, But the house had certainly been built by a millionaire, and was said to be absolutely the last word in luxury. Vera Claythorne, tired by a recent strenuous term at school, thought to herself, being a games mistress in a third-class school isn't much of a catch. If only I could get a job at some decent school. And then, with a cold feeling round her heart, she thought, but I'm lucky to have this. After all, people don't like a coroner's inquest, even if the coroner did acquit me of all blame. He had even complimented her on her presence of mind and courage, she remembered. For an inquest, it couldn't have gone better, and Mrs. Hamilton had been kindness itself to her. Only Hugo. But she wouldn't think of Hugo. Suddenly, in spite of the heat in the carriage, she shivered and wished she wasn't going to the sea. A picture rose clearly before her mind. Cyril's head bobbing up and down, swimming to the rock. Up and down, and herself swimming in easy, practised strokes after him, cleaving her way through the water, but knowing only too surely that she wouldn't be in time. The sea, its deep, warm, blue morning spent lying out on the sand. Hugo, who had said he loved her. She must not think of Hugo. She opened her eyes and frowned across at the man opposite her, a tall man with a brown face, light eyes set rather close together, and an arrogant, almost cruel mouth. I bet he's been to some interesting parts of the world, and seen some interesting things. Philip Lombard, summing up the girl opposite in a mere flash of his quick-moving eyes, thought to himself, quite attractive, a bit schoolmistress perhaps. A cool customer, he could imagine, and one who could hold her own in love or war. He'd rather like to take her on. He frowned. No, cut out all that kind of stuff. This was business. He'd got to keep his mind on the job. What exactly was up, he wondered. The whole thing had been damned mysterious. Take it or leave it, Captain Lombard. 100 guineas, eh? He had said it in a casual way, as though 100 guineas was nothing to him. 100 guineas, when he was literally down to his last square meal. He had fancied, though, that the man had not been deceived. And you can't give me any further information? No, Captain Lombard. The matter rests there. It is understood by my client that your reputation is that of a good man in a tight place. I am empowered to hand you 100 guineas, in return for which you will travel to Sticklehaven, Devon. The nearest station is Oakbridge. You will be met there and motored to Sticklehaven, where a motor launch will convey you to Soldier Island. There you will hold yourself at the disposal of my client. For how long? Not longer than a week, at most. Fingering his small moustache, Captain Lombard said, You understand I can't undertake anything illegal. He had darted a very sharp glance at the other as he had spoken. If anything illegal is proposed, you will, of course, be at perfect liberty to withdraw. Damn the smooth little brute, he was laughing at him. Legality had not always been a stumbling block in Lombard's activities. Lombard's own lips parted in a grin. By Jove, he'd sailed pretty near to the wind once or twice, but he'd got away with it. There wasn't much he drew the line at. Not really. No, there wasn't much he'd draw the line at. He fancied that he was going to enjoy himself at Soldier Island. In a non-smoking carriage, Miss Emily Brent sat very upright, as was her custom. She was 65, and she did not approve of lounging. Her father, a colonel of the old school, had been particular about deportment. The present generation was shamelessly lax, in their carriage and in every other way. Enveloped in an aura of righteousness and unyielding principles, Miss Brent sat in her crowded third-class carriage and triumphed over its discomfort and its heat. Everyone made such a fuss over things nowadays. They wanted injections before they had their teeth pulled. They took drugs if they couldn't sleep. They wanted easy chairs and cushions, and the girls allowed their figures to slop about anyhow and lay about half naked on the beaches in summer. Miss Brent's lips set closely. She would like to make an example of certain people. She remembered last year's summer holiday. This year, however, it would be quite different. Soldier Island. Mentally she reread the letter which she had already read so many times. Dear Miss Brent, I do hope you remember me. We were together at Belhaven Guest House in August some years ago, and we seemed to have so much in common. I am starting a guest house of my own on an island off the coast of Devon. I think there is really an opening for a place where there is good plain cooking and a nice old-fashioned type of person. None of this nudity and gramophones half the night. I shall be very glad if you would see your way to spending your summer holiday on Soldier Island, quite free, as my guest. Would early in August suit you? Perhaps the 8th? Yours sincerely, U.N. What was the name? The signature was rather difficult to read. Emily Brent thought impatiently, so many people write their signatures quite illegibly. She let her mind run back over the people at Belhaven. She had been there 2 summers running. There had been that nice middle-aged woman, Mrs. What was her name? Her father had been a canon. And there had been a Miss Alton. Ormond? No, surely it was Oliver. Yes, Oliver. Soldier Island. There had been many things in the paper about Soldier Island. Something about a film star. Or was it an American millionaire? Of course, often these places went very cheap. Islands didn't suit everybody. They thought the idea was romantic, but when they came to live there, they realized the disadvantages and were only too glad to sell. I shall be getting a free holiday at any rate. With her income so much reduced and so many dividends not being paid, that was indeed something to take into consideration. If only she could remember a little more about Mrs. or was it Miss Oliver? General MacArthur looked out of the carriage window. The train was coming into Exeter, where he had to change. Damnable, these slow branch-line trains. This place, Soldier Island, was really no distance at all, as the crow flies. He hadn't got it clear who this fellow Owen was. A friend of Spoof Leggard's, apparently, and of Johnny Dyer's. 1 or 2 of your old cronies are coming. Would like to have a talk over old times. Well, he'd enjoy a chat about old times. He'd had a fancy lately that fellows were rather lighting shy of him, all owing to that damned rumour. By God, it was pretty hard. Nearly 30 years now. Armstrong had talked, he supposed. Damned young pup! What did he know about it? Oh, well, no good brooding about these things. One fancied things sometimes, fancied a fellow was looking at you queerly. This Soldier Island now. He'd be interested to see it. A lot of gossip flying about. Looked as though there might be something in the rumour that the Admiralty or the War Office or the Air Force had got hold of it. Young Elmer Robson, the American millionaire, had actually built the place, spent thousands on it, so it was said, every mortal luxury. Exeter, and an hour to wait. And he didn't want to wait. He wanted to get on. Dr. Armstrong was driving his Morris across Salisbury Plain. He was very tired. Success had its penalties. There had been a time when he sat in his consulting room in Harley Street, correctly apparelled, surrounded with the most up-to-date appliances and the most luxurious furnishings, and waited. Waited through the empty days for his venture to succeed or fail. Well, it had succeeded. He'd been lucky. Lucky and skilled, of course. He was a good man at his job. But that wasn't enough for success. He had to have luck as well. And he'd had it. An accurate diagnosis, a couple of grateful women patients, women with money and position, and word had got about. You ought to try Armstrong. Quite a young man, but so clever. Pam had been to all sorts of people for years, and he put his finger on the trouble at once. The ball had started rolling. And now Dr. Armstrong had definitely arrived. His days were full. He had little leisure. And so, on this August morning, he was glad that he was leaving London and going to be for some days on an island off the Devon coast. Not that it was exactly a holiday. The letter he had received had been rather vague in its terms, but there was nothing vague about the accompanying cheque. A whacking fee. These Owens must be rolling in money. Some little difficulty, it seemed. A husband who was worried about his wife's health and wanted a report on it without her being alarmed. She wouldn't hear of seeing a doctor. Her nerves. Nerves. The doctor's eyebrows went up. These women and their nerves. Well, it was good for business, after all. Half the women who consulted him had nothing the matter with them but boredom, but they wouldn't thank you for telling them so, and one could usually find something. A slightly uncommon condition of the... some long word. Nothing at all serious, but it just needs putting right. A simple treatment. Well, medicine was mostly faith-healing when it came to it, and he had a good manner. He could inspire hope and belief. Lucky that he'd managed to pull himself together in time after that business 15 years ago. It had been a near thing, that. He'd been going to pieces. The shock had pulled him together. He'd cut out drink altogether. By Jove, it had been a near thing, though. With a devastating car-splitting blast on the horn, an enormous super-sports Dalmatian car rushed past him at 80 miles an hour. Dr. Armstrong nearly went into the hedge. One of these young fools who tore around the country. He hated them. That had been a near shave, too. Damned young fool! Damned young fool! Tony Marston, roaring down into Mere, thought to himself, the amount of cars crawling about the roads is frightful. Always someone blocking your way. And they will drive in the middle of the road. Pretty hopeless driving in England anyway. Should he stop for a drink here, or push on? Heaps of time. Only another 100 miles and a bit to go. He'd have a gin and ginger beer. Fizzing hot day. The island place ought to be rather good fun, if the weather lasted. Who were these Owens, he wondered. Rich and stinking, probably. Badger was rather good at nosing people like that out. Of course, he had to, poor old chap, with no money of his own. Hope they'd do one well in drinks. Never knew where these fellows had made their money and weren't born to it. Pity that story about Gabrielle Turl having bought Soldier Island wasn't true. He'd like to have been in with that film star crowd. Oh well, he supposed there'd be a few girls there. Coming out of the hotel, he stretched himself, yawned, looked up at the blue sky, and climbed into the domain. Several young women looked at him admiringly. His 6 feet of well-proportioned body, his crisp hair, tanned face, and intensely blue eyes. He let in the clutch with a roar and leapt up the narrow street. Old men and errand boys jumped for safety. The latter looked after the car admiringly. Anthony Marston proceeded on his triumphal progress. Mr. Blore was in the slow train from Plymouth. There was only one other person in his carriage, an elderly seafaring gentleman with a bleary eye. At the present moment he had dropped off to sleep. Mr. Blore was writing carefully in a little notebook. That's the lot. Emily Brent, Vera Claythorne, Dr. Armstrong, Anthony Marston, Old Judge Wargrave, Philip Lombard, General MacArthur, CMG, DSO, manservant and wife, Mr. and Mrs. Rogers. He closed the notebook and put it back in his pocket. He glanced over at the corner and the slumbering man. Had 1 over the 8, diagnosed Mr. Blore accurately. He went over things carefully and conscientiously in his mind. Job ought to be easy enough. Don't see how I can slip up on it. Hope I look all right. He stood up and scrutinized himself anxiously in the glass. The face reflected there was of a slightly military cast, with a moustache. There was very little expression in it. The eyes were grey and set rather close together. I might be a major. No, I forgot. There's that old military gent. He'd spot me at once. South Africa? Yeah, South Africa. That's my line. None of these people have anything to do with South Africa, and I've just been reading that travel folder, so I can talk about it all. Yes, that'll do very nicely. Fortunately, there were all sorts and types of colonials. As a man of means from South Africa, Mr. Blore felt that he could enter into any society unchallenged. Soldier Island. He remembered Soldier Island as a boy. Smelly sort of rock covered with gulls. Stood about a mile from the coast. It had got its name from its resemblance to a man's head, which some thought looked a bit like an old-fashioned tin soldier. Funny idea to go and build a house on it. Awful in bad weather. The old man in the corner woke up.
You can't never tell at sea. Never.
That's right, you can't.
There's a squall coming.
No, mate. It's a lovely day.
There's a squall ahead. I can smell it.
Maybe you're right. The train stopped at a station and the old fellow rose unsteadily.
This is where I get out.
He fumbled with a window. Mr. Blore helped him. The old man stood in the doorway. He raised a solemn hand and blinked his bleary eyes.
Watch and pray. Watch and pray. The day of judgment is at hand.
He collapsed through the doorway onto the platform. From a recumbent position he looked up at Mr. Blore and said with immense dignity,
I am talking to you, young man. The day of judgment is very close at hand.
Subsiding into his seat, Mr. Blore thought to himself, He's nearer the day of judgment than I am. But there, as it happens, he was wrong. Outside Oakbridge Station, a little group of people stood in momentary uncertainty. Behind them stood porters with suitcases. One of these called Jim, and the driver of one of the taxis stepped forward. "Young friend in Ireland, maybe?" 4 voices gave assent, and immediately afterwards gave quick, surreptitious glances at each other. The driver said, addressing his remarks to Mr. Justice Wargrave as the senior member of the party, "There are 2 taxis here, sir. One of them must wait till the slow train from Exeter gets in. A matter of 5 minutes. There's one gentleman coming by that. Perhaps one of you wouldn't mind waiting? You'd be more comfortable that way." Vera Claythorne, her own secretarial position clear in her mind, spoke at once. "I'll wait, if you will go on." She looked at the other 3. Her glance and voice had the slight suggestion of command in it that comes from having occupied a position of authority. She might have been directing which tennis sets the girls were to play in. Miss Brent said stiffly, "Thank you," bent her head, and entered one of the taxis, the door of which the driver was holding open. Mr. Justice Wargrave followed her. Captain Lombard said, "I'll wait with Miss Claythorne. My name is Lombard, Philip Lombard." The porters were piling luggage on the taxi. Inside, Mr. Justice Wargrave said with due legal caution, "Beautiful weather we're having." "Yes, indeed." "Very distinguished old gentleman," thought Miss Brent to herself, "quite unlike the usual type of man in seaside guest-houses. Evidently Mrs. or Miss or Mr. Oliver had good connections." "Do you know this part of the world well?" "I have been to Cornwall and to Torquay, but this is my first visit to this part of Devon." "I am also unacquainted with this part of the world." The taxi drove off. The driver of the second taxi said, "You'd like to sit inside while you're all waiting?" Vera said decisively, "Not at all." Captain Lombard smiled. "That sunny wall looks more attractive, unless you'd rather go inside the station." "No, indeed. It's so delightful to get out of that stuffy train." "Yes, travelling by train is rather trying in this weather." "I do hope it lasts. The weather, I mean. Our English summers are so treacherous." "Do you know this part of the world well?" "No, I've never been here before. I haven't even seen my employer yet." "Oh, your employer?" "Yes, I'm Mrs. Owen's secretary." "Oh, I see." Just imperceptibly his manner changed. It was slightly more assured, easier. "Isn't that rather unusual?" "I don't think so, no. Her own secretary was suddenly taken ill, and she wired to an agency for a substitute, and they sent me." Ah, so that was it. And suppose you don't like the post when you've got there?
Well, it's only temporary. A holiday post. I've got a permanent job at a girls' school. As a matter of fact, I'm frightfully thrilled at the prospect of seeing Soldier Island. There's been such a lot about it in the papers. It's all very fascinating.
I don't know. I haven't read it.
Really? The Owens are frightfully keen on it. What are they like? Do tell me.
Lombard thought. Awkward, this. Am I supposed to have met them or not?
Oh, there's a wasp crawling up your arm. No, keep quite still.
He gave a convincing pounce. There. Gone.
Oh, thank you. There's such a lot of wasps about this summer.
Yes, I suppose it's the heat. Who are you waiting for, do you know?
I haven't the least idea.
The loud, drawn-out scream of an approaching train was heard. That'll be the train now. It was a tall, soldierly old man who appeared at the exit from the platform. His grey hair was clipped close, and he had a neatly trimmed white moustache. His porter, staggering slightly under the weight of a solid leather suitcase, indicated Vera and Lombard. Vera came forward in a competent manner.
I am Miss Owen's secretary. There is a car waiting. This is Mr. Lombard.
The faded blue eyes, shrewd in spite of their age, sized up Lombard. For a moment a judgment showed in them, had there been anyone to read it. Good-looking fellow. Something just a little wrong about him. The three of them got into the waiting taxi. They drove through the sleepy streets of Little Oakbridge and continued about a mile on the main Plymouth Road. Then they plunged into a maze of cross-country lanes, steep, green, and narrow. Don't know this part of Devon at all.
Oh, it's really lovely here. The hills and red earth, and everything so green and luscious-looking.
It's a bit shut in. I like open country myself, where you can see what's coming. You've seen a bit of the world, I fancy. Oh, well, I've knocked about here and there, sir. He thought to himself, he'll ask me now if I was old enough to be in the war. These old boys always do. But General MacArthur did not mention the war. They came up over a steep hill and down a zigzag track to Sticklehaven, a mere cluster of cottages, with a fishing boat or two drawn up on the beach. Illuminated by the setting sun, they had their first glimpse of Soldier Island jutting up out of the sea to the south. Vera said, surprised,
"It's a long way out."
She had pictured it differently, close to shore, crowned with a beautiful white house. But there was no house visible, only the boldly silhouetted rock, with its faint resemblance to a giant soldier's head. There was something sinister about it. She shivered faintly. Outside a little inn, the Seven Stars, 3 people were sitting. There was the hunched, elderly figure of the judge, the upright form of Miss Brent, and a third man, who came forward and introduced himself. "We thought we'd wait for you. Make one trip of it. Allow me to introduce myself. The name is Davis. South Africa's my normal port of call, but here I am." Mr. Justice Wargrave looked at him with active malevolence. He seemed to be wishing that he could order the court to be cleared. Miss Emily Brent was clearly not sure if she liked colonials. "Anyone care for a little nip before we embark?" Nobody assenting to this proposition, Mr. Davis turned and held up a finger. "Mustn't delay, then. Our good host and hostess will be expecting us." He might have noticed that a curious constraint came over the other members of the party. It was as though the mention of their host and hostess had a curiously paralysing effect. In response to Davis's beckoning finger, a man detached himself from a nearby wall against which he had been leaning, and came up to them. His rolling gait proclaimed him as a man of the sea. He had a weather-beaten face and dark eyes, with a slightly evasive expression. "Will you be ready to be starting to the island, ladies and gentlemen? The boat's waiting. There's 2 gentlemen coming by car, but Mr. Owen's orders was not to wait for them, as they might arrive at any time." The party got up. Their guide led them along a small stone jetty. Alongside it a motorboat was lying. Emily Brent said, "That's a very small boat." "Oh, she's a fine boat, that, ma'am. You could go to Plymouth in her, easy's winking, Mr. Justice Wargrave said sharply. There are a good many of us. She'd take double the number, sir, Philip Lombard said in his pleasant, easy voice. It's quite all right. Glorious weather. No swell. Rather doubtfully, Miss Brent permitted herself to be helped into the boat. The others followed suit. There was as yet no fraternizing among the party. It was as though each member of it was puzzled by the other members. They were just about to cast loose when their guide paused, boat-hook in hand. Down the steep track into the village a car was coming. A car so fantastically powerful, so superlatively beautiful, that it had all the nature of an apparition. At the wheel sat a young man, his hair blown back by the wind. In the blaze of the evening light he looked not a man, but a young god, a hero god, out of some northern saga. He touched the horn, and a great roar of sound echoed from the rocks on the bay. It was a fantastic moment. In it Anthony Marston seemed to be something more than mortal. Afterwards, more than one of these present remembered that moment. Fred Narracott sat by the engine thinking to himself that this was a queer lot. Not at all his idea of what Mr. Owen's guests were likely to be. He'd expected something altogether more classy. Togged-up women and gentlemen in yachting costume, and all very rich and important-looking. Not at all like Mr. Elmer Robson's parties. A faint grin came to Fred Narracott's lips as he remembered the millionaire guests. That had been a party, if you like, and the drink they'd got through. This Mr. Owen must be a very different sort of gentleman. Funny it was, thought Fred, that he'd never set eyes on Mr. Owen, or his missus either. Never been down here yet, he hadn't. Everything ordered and paid for by that Mr. Morris. Instructions always very clear and payment prompt. But it was odd all the same. The papers said there was some mystery about Owen. Mr. Narracott agreed with them. Perhaps, after all, it was Miss Gabrielle Turl who had bought the island. But that theory departed from him as he surveyed his passengers. Not this lot. None of them looked likely to have anything to do with a film star. One old maid, the sour kind, he knew them well enough. She was a Tartar, he could bet. Old military gentleman, real army by the look of him. Nice-looking young lady, but the ordinary kind, not glamorous. No Hollywood touch about her. That bluff, cheery gent, he wasn't a real gentleman. Retired tradesman, that's what he is, thought Fred Narracott. The other gentleman, the lean, hungry-looking gentleman with the quick eyes, he was a queer one, he was. Just possible he might have something to do with the pictures. No, there was only one satisfactory passenger in the boat, the last gentleman, the one who had arrived in the car. And what a car! A car such as had never been seen in Sticklehaven before. Must have cost hundreds and hundreds, a car like that. He was the right kind. Born to money, he was. If the party had been all like him, he'd understand it. Queer business, when you came to think of it. The whole thing was queer. Very queer. The boat churned its way round the rock. Now, at last, the house came into view. The south side of the island was quite different. It shelved gently down to the sea. The house was there, facing south, low and square and modern-looking, with rounded windows, letting in all the light. An exciting house, a house that lived up to expectation. Fred Narracott shut off the engine. They nosed their way gently into a little natural inlet between the rocks. Must be difficult to land here in dirty weather? Oh, can't land on Soldier Island when there's a south-easter, eh? Sometimes 'tis cut off for a week or more. The catering must be very difficult. That's the worst of an island. All the domestic problems are so worrying. The boat grated against the rocks. Fred jumped out, and he and Lombard helped the others to alight. Narracott made the boat fast to a rock, then led the way up steps cut in the rock. It's a delightful spot, but the General felt uneasy. Damned odd sort of place. As the party ascended the steps and came out onto a terrace above, their spirits revived. In the open doorway of the house, a correct butler was awaiting them, and something about his gravity reassured them. And then the house itself was really most attractive. The view from a terrace, magnificent. The butler came forward, bowing slightly. He was a tall, lank man, grey-haired and very respectable. "Will you come this way, please?" In the wide hall drinks stood ready, rows of bottles. Anthony Marston's spirits cheered up a little. He'd just been thinking this was a rum kind of show. None of his lot. What could old Badger have been thinking about to let him in for this? However, the drinks were all right. Plenty of ice, too. What was it the butler chap was saying? "Mr. Owen's unfortunately delayed, unable to get here till tomorrow." Then something about instructions, everything they wanted, and would they like to go to their rooms? Dinner would be at 8 o'clock. Yes, that all sounds splendid. Vera had followed Mrs. Rogers upstairs. The woman had thrown open a door at the end of the passage, and Vera had walked into a delightful bedroom, with a big window that opened wide upon the sea, and another looking east. She uttered a quick exclamation of pleasure. "I hope you have everything you want, miss." Vera looked round. Her luggage had been brought up and had been unpacked. At one side of the room a door stood open into a pale blue-tiled bathroom. "Yes, everything, I think. You'll ring the bell if you want anything, miss." Vera looked at her curiously. What a white bloodless ghost of a woman. Very respectable looking, with her hair dragged back from her face and her black dress. Queer light eyes that shifted the whole time from place to place. She looks frightened of her own shadow. Yes, frightened. She looks like a woman who walks in mortal fear. A little shiver passed down Vera's back. What on earth was the woman afraid of? "I'm Mrs. Owen's new secretary. I expect you know that." "No, miss. I don't know anything. Just a list of the ladies and gentlemen and what rooms they're to have." "Mrs. Owen didn't mention me?" "I haven't seen Mrs. Owen. Not yet. We only came here 2 days ago." Extraordinary people, these Owens, thought Vera. "What staff is there here?" "Just me and Rogers, miss." 8 people in the house. 10 with the host and hostess. And only one married couple to do for them. "I'm a good cook, and Rogers is handy about the house. I didn't know, of course, that there was to be such a large party." "But you can manage?" "Oh, yes, miss, I can manage. If there's to be large parties often, though, perhaps Mrs. Owen could get extra help in." "Oh, I expect so." Mrs. Rogers turned to go. Her feet moved noiselessly over the floor. She drifted from the room like a shadow. Vera went over to the window and sat down on the window-seat. She was faintly disturbed. Everything, somehow, was a little odd. The presence of the Owens, the pale ghost-like Mrs. Rogers, and the guests. Yes, the guests were odd, too. An oddly assorted party. I wish I'd seen the Owens. I wish I knew what they were like. She got up and walked restlessly about the room. A perfect bedroom, decorated throughout in the modern style. Off-white rugs on the gleaming parquet floor, faintly tinted walls, a long mirror surrounded by lights, a mantelpiece bare of ornaments, save for an enormous block of white marble shaped like a bear, a piece of modern sculpture in which was inset a clock. Over it, in a gleaming chromium frame, was a big square of parchment, a poem. She stood in front of the fireplace and read it. It was the old nursery rhyme that she remembered from her childhood days. 10 little soldier boys went out to dine. One choked his little self, and then there were 9. 9 little soldier boys sat up very late. One overslept himself, and then there were 8. 8 little soldier boys travelling in Devon. One said he'd stay there, and then there were 7. 7 little soldier boys chopping up sticks. One chopped himself in halves, and then there were 6. 6 little soldier boys playing with a hive. A bumblebee stung one, and then there were 5. 5 little soldier boys going in for law. One got in chancery, and then there were 4. 4 little soldier boys going out to sea. A red herring swallowed one, and then there were 3. 3 little soldier boys walking in the zoo. A big bear hugged one, and then there were 2. 2 little soldier boys sitting in the sun. One got frizzled up, and then there was 1. 1 little soldier boy left all alone. He went and hanged himself, and then there were none. Of course. Soldier Island. She went and sat again by the window, looking out to sea. How big the sea was! From here there was no land to be seen anywhere, just a vast expanse of blue water rippling in the evening sun. The sea, so peaceful today, sometimes so cruel. The sea that dragged you down to its depths. Drowned, found, drowned, drowned at sea, drowned, drowned, drowned. No! She wouldn't remember. She would not think of it. All that was over.